Hi, Vinyl Community. It is Glen Kellaway coming to you from the basement with my good friend Sam St. John. Hey, Sam.
Hello, Glenn. Hello, viewers.
Yeah, hi. It's great that we're back with the Sam and Glen Show. This time we're going to do our 15 favorite bands. Uh, just to start, because our favorite band is the Beatles, we decided we'd just get that out of the way to start the program here. So that kind of makes number two a bit more dramatic pick because probably everybody who knows us would have went on the Beatles are going to be number one. So now it's a bit more interesting, I think, this way.
Indeed.
So we're going to try and keep this down to a dull roar today. Our last video was like an hour and 45 minutes long. So without further ado, our 15 favorite bands. Sam's going to go first with his number 15 pick.
Okay, yeah. So, I guess, like you said, number 15, I guess, was the Beatles. Well, number one was the Beatles. So this is 14-ish, I guess.
Oh, well, yeah, kind of. Yeah, depending on how you want to say it.
Yeah, okay. So Beatles, yeah, number one.
Okay.
Anyway, that was Beatles for sale. So, number 15, Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
A lot of people's number one pick. I know a lot of best bands of all time. They're oftentimes in the top five. They were a band I was really into when the reissues came out, when Jimmy Page curated the reissues. I guess it was 2014. The whole catalog was re-released, and I started picking up all of the remastered copies, and just I got all but I think one of their albums. For whatever reason, I missed out on one of them, but I listened to them a lot, especially 1, 2, 3, and 4. I listened to quite a bit in my car. They're just a killer, power trio for instrumentation. And then Robert Plant's voice is, another level. He's the golden god, and not a band I go back to very much. Again, that was kind of a phase in my life, but I have to recognize how great they were. I mean, the four of them were each the best in their craft for a lot of lists. And what can you say about Zeppelin? So that's my number 15.
I'm not going to argue with you. They should be on the list. My number 15 is an obscure pick. I just kind of moved them to number 15. I moved them onto my list over the last couple of days because just to let everybody know, the way I picked my list was what am I still passionate about listening to? Not necessarily because I think a band was great and I don't listen to them much anymore. So I kind of went, nah, they're not going to make my list this time. So there's some new people showing up on my list than if you would have asked me to do this a year ago. So I'm starting off with one of the most influential bands of the late 60s and early 70s, Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. Such an impactful band in terms of what they kind of started with all the news going on about the George Harrison All Things Must Pass stuff. George Harrison was totally influenced by these guys, played with them on one of their tours. Eric Clapton, the whole Derek and the Dominoes thing started as a result of these guys playing in this band with Bobby Whitlock and Carl Rattle and Eric and Leon Russell and oh man, there's just so many. Rita Coolidge, so much came out of this band, Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. It's incredible. It's a mix of gospel, rock and roll, blues, and soul, and just incredible band. Duane Allman played with them. Just everybody wanted to play with that. I just finished reading. Sorry, keep going on. Just finished reading Steve Howe's autobiography from Yes, and he mentioned in the band he was in before Yes, that band got to open for Delaney and Bonnie and Friends on a European tour. He said it was the best, one of the best musical experiences of his whole career. So anyway, cool. That's Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, number 15 or 14, whichever in your program
there. Yeah, that's a band I need to get into more.
Yeah.
All right. Number 14, again, kind of like Zeppelin. a band that I was into for a long time. They're still on my bucket list to see live, and that would be U2, number 14, for all intents and purposes. I mean, again, kind of like Zeppelin, a solid power trio of instrumentation from Larry Mullen Jr., and Clayton, and Powerhouse from Bono, and they're just, a classic. Even now, I mean, up until probably 2005, I mean, they were still making really relevant music that was on the radio. Like, they were still getting hits. They were one of the last, big 80s bands to still be putting out hits. And I mean, their music is still very good. They're always being relevant without, being too modern. Again, I love the Edge's tone. You can always tell when he's playing, and they just fill an amphitheater. They were inspiration to so many groups, like modern groups like Coldplay and Muse. Just, I know Chris Martin from Coldplay always said his dream as a little boy was to be Bono, and since then he's got to play with U2, and I think they opened for them, and they were early on in their career. So that they're, again, another band that I need to get into more, but I can't. Again, they're on my list of people I want to see live. Still, I've never seen them, and I just think everything that they've done is just they have a beautiful body of work, and Bono and the Edge are great writers. So U2 for number 14.
Wow, good pick. Yeah, really good pick. I haven't seen them live either, but I'm a big fan of their earlier stuff. I didn't really follow too much after, but Joshua Tree is kind of my big dropping off point for U2 for some reason. I don't know why, but that great stuff. My number 14 is a band that I had in my top probably 5 a year ago or something. And I don't know why they dropped off, but because other bands moved up. It's just they kind of got pushed out of the way, but I still freaking love them. And this is one of my top 5 albums of all time. So Jethro Tull, Aqualung. Yeah, I just love Jethro Tull. I love the whole dynamics of the acoustic and the electric and the flute, and just Ian Anderson's great lyrics and amazing band. Martin Barr is a great guitar player. Yeah, Jethro Tull is my number 14. I think
cool
Sam.
Pick. I just listened to, from watching your videos. Yeah, we're both kind of breaking up. I know south of me there's some tornadoes. There's nothing in my neck of the woods right now, but there could be some. Based on some videos, he inspired me to listen to Aqualung probably a couple months ago, and I really liked it. I haven't listened to it since, but I liked it. I just gave it one spin, but I liked it a lot. So
it's a grower.
Glenn, for getting me into some music I wouldn't have looked at otherwise. Number 13. This is probably the final out of like my 15, 14, 13. This is probably like the final of like groups that like I was big into. I would go through their greatest hits constantly, and then get into their other material a little bit later on. But number 13 is the Eagles. Out of all the bands, like the classic bands on my list, well, with the exception of one, they have the smallest catalog. I don't even think they didn't even make 10 albums. They made 6 or 7 albums, the Eagles, including the Long Road Out of Eden on kind of the reunion in the early 2000s. But yeah, a lot of people think that.
I hate that.
I think I've listened to it once all the way through, and then some of the singles.
It sounded like a bad Backstreet Boys album.
I had a phase when I was little where Backstreet Boys were. I listened to them a lot.
Yeah, my daughters too. So.
They're a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not that guilty. What am I kidding? The Eagles, yeah. I mean, you either love them or hate them because they are overplayed. I mean, this for a long time, this was the greatest selling album of all time. Their greatest hits, their first greatest hits album.
Yeah.
And every single one of them is just played to death, just beaten to death on classic rock radio. And this one doesn't even have Hotel California on it. That's the second greatest hits. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny, again, and I love them, especially going back now and listening to the groups that they influence or spawn, from their network of people. I mean, you had Poco and the Burritos, the Burrito Brothers, and those groups that all had Eagles influences and Eagle members in them. And I mean, it's, in terms of harmony, probably the best American band for harmonies. Don Henley and Glenn Fry were just two great songwriters, and then they would bring in Joe Walsh later on to rock it out, and just every element of the Eagles, for every incarnation of the Eagles, made them great. I mean, there was never a time, and from all their albums, with the exception of Long Road, where they were, they hit a low mark. Even The Long Run was, a good album.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Eagles, they're, if you play acoustic guitar, you have to like the Eagles.
I love the Eagles, but it's another band I don't play a lot anymore. But I love the original lineup. I'm a big fan of the first 3 or 4 albums.
With Bernie.
The Desperado album is my favorite, and that actually was a big inspiration on me picking up a banjo. So just a great album. Bernie Leadon was just my favorite player in the Eagles. Great musician.
And as a side note, his brother Tom Leadon is in Mudcrutch with Tom Petty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My next pick is, again, a band that, man, there's no reason this isn't number one. The Owen Brothers. Been a fan. This was the first Owen Brothers I ever heard when I was in high school. When it came out, they had a record player in our library, and I saw this album. I'm going, what's this? And I put it on, just went, oh my God. Blew my head off. I mean, Dwayne Allman, Dickie Betts, Greg Allman's my favorite rock singer. So, yeah, Allman Brothers. I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Number 13 for you. All right. I'm going to dip into my deeper catalog now, and I'm going to go with, I guess this is the most modern band that I have on here, like in terms of like forms of when they formed. And I've done a couple of videos about them, but I'm just going to briefly talk about the Wild Feathers, or my number 12.
The Wild Feathers? I've never heard of them.
Well, you need to, anybody who's never heard of the Wild Feathers, check it out. It's a great group. It reminds you kind of the band, in that there are 3 lead singers in the Wild Feathers. All 3 guys came from different bands. Then they all got together, and they've put out 3 official studio albums. They put out a cover, like a half cover, half original album that was just released on vinyl. Like, it was only a vinyl release. And they have their 4th album, well, I guess 5th album, coming out later this year. And they've released 2 singles. But if you like the Eagles, if you like Tom Petty, if you like the band, they're a mix of all those things. I mean, they've done covers of all of those groups on different YouTube videos. So check out the Wild Feathers. I love them to death. I've played their 3 albums to death. They also have a live album, which I don't have, but it's Americana, it's Southern rock, it's harmony singing. They're just a killer rock and roll group.
Wow, that's interesting. A curveball.
Indeed, that's my curveball.
Wow, very good. Okay, my next pick, I got to tell you, this got added today. Could be top 5 for me, but I was thinking more about, is this somebody I like because they're individual or because of the band? But then I thought, I'm just going to add it anyway. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. So I figured the original Mothers of Invention, they were around from 64 to 70 or something before he broke them up. And then he had other versions of the band over the years. But the original Mothers, I mean, this is just the first album when it came out in 66 was just mind-blowing. And I'm such a huge Frank Zappa fan. I just love his playing, and I love his musical genius. I'm not such a big fan of his childish porn lyrics sometimes, but musically, just blows me away. And these first few Mothers of Invention albums are great. So I had to, at the last minute, add them to the list because so they're there. And I kicked off a band that Jesus, I'm going, how did I kick this band off? But I did.
Oh, that moves me to number 11. And again, a group that they're in their first incarnation, only released 2 full-length albums and a bunch of singles, but now they're touring again. They've released several albums, and their touring edition. One of my favorite concerts ever, the Zombies.
Oh, Zombies, wow.
I absolutely love the Zombies. I loved them before I knew that, certain bands were inspired by them. I know nowadays they're becoming more and more of a cult favorite because people are picking up Odyssey and Oracle, which is the album I just showed. Recorded the same time as Sgt. Pepper with a lot of the same instruments. Abbey Road Studios, just a great 60s British Invasion band that never got the credit they deserved, but now that they're older, they've been inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2019, and they are still kicking it. And I love them to death, the Zombies.
Oh, yeah. Hits, man. She's Not There, Tell Her No.
Yeah, Time of the Season. I love
Time of the Season, yeah. Beautiful. Great band. Awesome. Wow, that's a great pick. Bit of a curveball for me, but I like it. My next one, if anybody watches my channel regularly and they see a Grateful Dead poster behind me, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the San Francisco scene from the 60s. I'm just passionate about it. And the band that introduced me to that whole scene was not the Grateful Dead. It was the Jefferson Airplane. When I heard Surrealistic Pillow, that was it for me, man. I was just gone. So I love that whole scene. Is just really, really important to me. And so the Jefferson Airplane kickstarted it. I still listen to all their albums. I love this one, Crown of Creation, Volunteers, Surrealistic Pillow. Their live album, Bless Its Pointy Little Head, is a great live album. After Bathing at Baxter's, I could just go on and on. I just think they're a great band, and I listen to them all the time, and they had to be on my list because it's very important to my musical growth.
They're the only group with a Worst Of compilation.
Yeah, Worst Of. Yes.
Very cool. I'm liking the variety here so far. I mean, I think when we get to our lower picks, we'll probably get closer to matching, but
We'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
So this puts me into top 10.
Number 11, right? Wasn't this number 11? Oh, okay, 10 if you're doing. Yeah, we're kind of doing it a different way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first to crack into my top 10, which I'm thinking they're at some point going to make Glen's list as well. The Monkees.
Yeah, they might.
They might. Again, they're a band that they're a new resurgence for me. I got into them in 2016 with the Good Times album. Played that album to death. Phased out and went to other bands. Then I really got into some of their back catalog, especially once I got into Michael Nesmith quite a bit, his solo career. I would get back into the Monkees just to hear his stuff. And say what you will about the Monkees, they're a real band. This album was made by them. This album alone is just a great pop album from the late 60s. And what can I say? I'm supposed to see Mike and Mickey in October. Fingers crossed that that's going to happen, or that it's safe enough to happen.
I'm hoping I get to go too. If they open the border, I'm going in Orlando.
So the Monkees, I'm excited to see them. I'm excited that they're going to try to go out with a bang. And again, I always push for them to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if anybody's watching, which is what I always say, talking about the Monkees. So
yeah, John Winter, if you're watching, the Monkees got to be in the Hall of Fame. Okay.
That's my number 10.
All right. If I could give you a big kiss for that, but we're
COVID.
We're socially distancing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Done this list for the last 2 weeks. We've been talking about doing this, and my list has gone up and down and changed, and people have come out and people have gone in. And then the other day I'm going through, and all of a sudden this band that the name of the band just popped into my head and went, how the hell was I not thinking about these guys? Creedence Clearwater Revival. What a band. John Fogerty, a freaking hits machine, man. The guy is just, I think he gets up in the morning and he
this
makes
amount of
hits
time,
just eating cornflakes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I actually saw John Fogerty about 5 years ago. Man, what a show. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Creedence. Still listen to them all the time. Been listening to them since they came out in 67 or 68. And yeah, big time Creedence Clearwater fan.
Very
so
cool.
My number 11, I guess, or 10, or whatever it is.
That was your number 10. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, number 9. We're single digits. The Byrds.
Oh.
Number 9.
Okay.
I mean, they're the sound of the 60s, Laurel Canyon. The 12-string Rickenbacker with Roger McGuinn. Great. I mean, everybody in that band's, maybe with the exception of Michael Clark on the drums, just very prolific in their own right. I mean, you had Chris Hillman, David Crosby, Gene Clark, Roger McGuinn. Later, you had Graham Parsons. Clarence White came into the later incarnation of it. I mean, I love every version of the Byrds, even though it became Roger's solo outlet, essentially, the last few albums. But, I mean, what an influence they had. I got to see McGuinn and Hillman a few years ago with the Sweetheart of the Rodeo tour. Fantastic. And that really bumped me. Once I heard the Sweetheart album, that's when I started going back into their back catalog. And I love the Byrds. I wish I could have seen them live. I've heard that they weren't a great live band, but they had some really good studio work. And I'm really fortunate to have seen the 3 surviving members of the Byrds, with Crosby by himself and then McGuinn and Hillman. So they're my number 9.
Wow. Okay. I got a confession to make. The Byrds were completely off my radar. And now I'm upset because I didn't consider them. Oh, what an idiot. Okay.
So many bands.
Man. Okay. Next, the Byrds. No. The Who. My favorite Who album, Quadrophenia, but geez, Live at Leeds and Who's Next? Pete Townsend, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, in my opinion. Tommy, I mean, just he's a genius of stuff he did. And just the original band was just so fantastic. I don't know what else to say. Just big time Who fan.
And happy 50th to Who's Next. I think just the other day it celebrated its birthday.
Yeah. I think they're going to release a box set, actually.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, that would be very good.
All right. Now, my number 8. I was up in the air about this. I was thinking, do I call them a band? Do I not? They had such a small amount of material. But then I thought, it's my list. I'm going to call they're definitely a band. They're the greatest. They never toured. But they released one of my probably top 10 albums of all time. And yeah, I'm just going to show.
Traveling Wilburys. That's awesome.
The Traveling Wilburys. Nobody can deny they're the greatest supergroup that has ever lived. I mean, when you have a supergroup that consists of a Beatle and Bob Dylan, that in itself, is something. But then you have Jeff Lynne from ELO, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, and then you have Jim Keltner on the drums. I mean, the Volume 1 album, the first album, got me through middle school and early high school. And though they only had 2 albums, I don't care. They're still so influential to me. And I'm so sad that they never, even after Harrison died, I wish they could have done something else as a trio. But then we lost Petty. That's impossible. But yeah, I love the Wilburys, and they will always be one of my favorite bands.
Wow, that's a great pick. I love that. Another curveball. You're throwing all the curveballs at me. Jeez, I'm just throwing fastballs here. Okay, next. The band. Amazing. What can you say? Just the Fathers of Americana, I'm gonna say. Would that be accurate?
It's accurate.
Yeah. Just this is my favorite band album, the second one. but I love music from Big Pink and Cahoots and Northern Light, Southern Cross and Stage Fright. They're all great albums. Islands, just a great band. Robbie Robertson, amazing cinematic writer. Just the sound they had. 4 Canadians and a guy from Arkansas, and they came up with this really, really unique sound, especially for the times when everybody was, playing all these, Jimi Hendrix with the, whatever he was doing, all these guys with the heavy blues rock and everything. And then the band comes out of nowhere and just changes everything and influenced a ton of people and still influencing people today, I think. So really important band. I love them.
Very cool. All right. Number 7. Again, I'm another curveball probably for you, but along those lines of Americana. This is the second. Well, no. It's one of my 3 modern bands. This is the Wood Brothers. This is their most recent effort called Kingdom in My Mind, and they're a trio. And again, one of those bands I dig into so deep, and I want everything that they've ever done. And I've seen them twice live. Still one of the best live shows ever. I mean, they've beat out some of the greats that I've seen. I mean, just in the small venues that I've seen them play. Just a guy on guitar, bass, and drums. I mean, they kill it. They're Americana. They've got a little blues. They got slide guitar. They've got great percussion. Just, they're I mean, they're under the radar, but in the festival circuit, people want to see the Wood Brothers. So that is my number 7.
Wow, another curveball. I think you just about struck me out now. I think we're 3 and 2 in the count.
I'll throw my shoulder out. Yeah.
Just don't throw it up my head next time. I'll be fine. Okay, you've already mentioned these guys. I think you started off with them. Led Zeppelin. I mean, it was hard. This could have been. I think they were higher up, and they kind of got pushed down a little bit. But I still listen to Zeppelin a lot. And just what can you say? I don't need to go on and on about Led Zeppelin. Everybody knows them. So that's my next pick.
Number 6. This group produced my favorite album of all time, but they are not my favorite band of all time. They're not even in the top 5. This is number 6, and that would be the Beach Boys. And there's their album Pet Sounds, which is my favorite ever. And again, one of those bands that when you grow up, you know all the hits and the surfing songs, and then you get into Pet Sounds and you kind of do pre and post Pet Sounds in the Beach Boys career. And I'm just now getting into their late 60s and their 70s output a lot more. But I mean, what can you say about the Beach Boys? What can you say about Brian Wilson that hasn't already been said? Huge influence on everybody. And yeah, I mean, what can you say? The Beach Boys.
Nothing wrong with that. No one can argue with that one. I'm going proggy here. A band when they were around in the early 70s, I couldn't stand them. I didn't get it. I had a good we had a group of about 5 or 6 of us who hung around all the time together, and we were all into music. And one guy was a big fan of this band, and we just teased him about it. Yes. Now, obviously, the Roundabout and all the hits and everything. But even if you ignore a band, you've heard those songs. And sometime in the 90s, for some reason, I picked up the Yes album and Close to the Edge, and went, because I got to try this. I'm a lot more, open to music by this time. So, and something hit me, and I just went, this is freaking incredible. These guys are amazing. And I became such a Yes fan, one of my favorite bands of all time now, and play them constantly. Steve Howe is just an incredible guitar player. This is Tales from Topographic Oceans. Just so unique and so inventive and just amazing musicians. Yes. Yes for yes.
I'm one of the first deep cuts that I heard of theirs was Your Move. Because I love the Give Peace a Chance refrain at the end. I thought that was the coolest thing. Probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, cool deal. All right. Top five, really, it's my last four because we all know the Beatles where they are. Yeah, just a couple people ago.
The Who.
Again, I'm with you. I think Pete Townsend is brilliant. He should be. He's not talked about enough as a musician. Just if you listen just their demos and box sets and on YouTube, his demos are brilliant in their own right. They could have been released as albums, but I mean, again, just like Zeppelin, like U2, every single guy in that band was the best at his craft at that time. I mean, Daltrey was the best, rock vocalist. Townsend's the best rhythm playist. And Whistle was like the first lead bassist. I mean, the Ox on his bass and Moon, was going wild. And I love their stuff. I've been going through their catalog fairly recently, listening to albums I don't listen to that much, like the Who Sell Out or just the first My Generation album. Mm-hmm. And listened to Quadrophenia the other day for the first time all the way through. So
really? That's my favorite Who album. It's amazing.
Yeah, we'll see. I was big into Tommy, and I love Tommy. I buy every incarnation of it that comes out, live albums and things. So, yeah, that's my number 5.
Wow. And that was my number 9, or number 8 or 9 or whatever. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Number 9.
Sticking with prog is in my top 5 here. King Crimson. If they only ever released this album, they would still be one of my top 5 bands of all time.
Wow.
Amazing. I love them. This is one of the top 5 album of all time for me. And just incredible band. So talented. Even the recent the Carnation, the band the way it is made up right now is probably my favorite incarnation of the band. And with Jacko Jackson singing and Robert Fripp and Tony Levin. Amazing band. They're on tour actually right now in the States.
Farewell tour.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they're getting up there. So
yeah,
I'm hoping they're going to get to Canada maybe next year if they work out. So anyway, King Crimson.
All right, my number 4 is the Ava Brothers. Again, they're a newer band, but they're a huge part of my life now. I've seen them once in concert, but I've got all their albums. All their stuff is great. I mean, they have a few weird songs, but their albums as a whole are all great. They're fantastic live, energetic. It started, as an acoustic trio, and then they've got a full band. They're playing Americana kind of stuff. They're really focused on lyrics these days and melody, and I love them to death. I think they're one of those bands. They're going to be around like the old guys. I mean, in 50 years, people will still be talking about the Ava Brothers, or there'll be box sets for Ava Brothers stuff. That's my prediction. So they're my number 4.
Yeah, great band. I love that band. Didn't make my list, but they're a great band. Okay, now we're in a band that was number 2, and I knocked them down. Rolling Stones. My favorite Stones album, Exile on Main Street. I mean, I've been a Stones fan since 1964, so yeah, right up to Tattoo You. After that, I'm more sporadic about what I've got, but from 64 to 1980, what a catalog of music and what a band. They kind of introduced me to the blues too, and just amazing. I've seen them live so many times and just love the Stones.
Cool. All right. My number 3. You've already mentioned them. You mentioned them as your number 8. The band.
All right.
Great live album here, the Rock of Ages album. It's got some great stuff at the end with Dylan. The last few tracks are with Dylan. Again, you've already talked about it. They're the Fathers of Americana, even though they're from Canada for the most part. And just Rick Danko and Levon Helm alone would have made a great band. But you have Richard Manuel on the organ and Robbie on lead and Garth filling in on the organ. And they all could play everything. I mean, if they needed a song where Levon needed to come up to the front, Richard would move over to the drums, Levon would get his mandolin, Rick could move over to guitar. They could play horns, whatever you wanted. They could play it. They could fill out a whole studio worth of musicians, just the 5 of them. And it's a shame that, they're essentially, they're all gone with the exception. All 3 of the singers are gone. We don't have those voices of the band anymore. We just have Garth and Robbie, long live Garth and Robbie, for as long as they can. But what an influential band. You mentioned it earlier. Guys like George Harrison talked about having them in their jukebox, Eric Clapton. It blew them away. They helped with Dylan changing his sound up in Big Pink from electric to more rootsy again. And, they're one of the best. And again, arguably the greatest, North American band ever.
I won't argue with you. The band. Okay. My number 3, I guess.
3.
The Grateful Dead. I just love this band. I just love everything about them. Jerry Garcia is one of my heroes in life. I just think he's the coolest dude that ever walked the earth. I love kind of the laid back, kind of bluesy, folky, bluegrassy, whatever they wanted to do. They incorporated it into their music. And this is my favorite Grateful Dead album, American Beauty. I can listen to them all day long. I've got tons of live recordings and all their studio stuff, and just Grateful Dead. Can't say enough about them. Huge fan. There they are. Well, there's Bertha anyway.
Yeah, Bertha's there. Very cool. They were on my contenders list, but they couldn't make it. I'm still not fully invested in them enough to put them on my list, but I love them. Good day. I love them. So this is our big reveal, I suppose.
I think I got 2 more to go. Oh no, I got 1 more to go. Yeah, I got 1 more to go.
Yeah. Okay. So those of you that know me,
drum roll.
Those of you that know me can probably guess who this band's going to be.
I got it.
They're the greatest American rock band that's ever lived. And you said Jerry Garcia is the coolest cat. I think Tom Petty is the coolest cat that ever walked the earth. So Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, they're just so good. They could play in the studio. They could back everybody up. They didn't really have a lot of ego from what I could tell, other than Stan Lynch, the drummer. They incorporated so well. It helped that Petty and Mike Campbell and Ben Mont Tench were playing together in high school in Mudcrutch, and then they moved to the Heartbreakers, and they would get guys like Howie Epstein came in, who was playing with everybody. He was playing with Del Shannon. He played with Jackson Brown. Even like their last incarnation with Steve Ferrone on the drums and Scott Thurston playing piano and guitar.
Scott Thurston's another guy who played with Jackson Brown too.
Guy. Yeah. And they're the greatest. I regret I never got to see him, and I pick up everything that I can with their name on it when it comes out, and every solo album from the different band members. So that's my number 2. Number 1 without the Beatles.
Wow, it's I can't argue with that. They didn't make my list, they were on it, and they kept moving down. And I'm a big fan, but I don't know. Okay, my number 1 today, besides the Beatles, you have no idea how many restless nights I've had over the past few days doing this. So here's my thought process. I loved this band so much when I was 13, 14 years old, 1966, 1967, that they were equal with the Beatles with me. And I ate, slept, and drank Beatles. Like, they were just like, there was nothing else in my life but the Beatles. And these guys came along, and I was so passionate about them and loved them so much. And then over the years, you kind of I got away from it. And I had a CD set with their albums, like one of those original classic album things with the 5 albums in it. You get for $20. The odd time I play a song or so. And then earlier this year, somewhat thanks to you, and somewhat just thanks to whatever was going on in my head. I found my 13-year-old passion again, and I am obsessed to the point where I'm on YouTube every night watching interviews, watching any clip I can find. I'm listening to this music all day long, all night long. I know I will never lose my passion for it. This isn't just a little fatty thing going on for a couple of months. So these guys are number 2 because I'm 13 years old again.
So cool.
They just meant so much to me, and it's just, and I rediscovered how much I love them, and I am just like, I can't believe how much I'm listening to the Monkees.
I love it.
I owe a lot of that to you because Sam got me to buy the Monkees Live, the Mike and Mickey Show album, which is outstanding. And then I really got heavy. I always loved Nez's solo stuff, and I really got heavy into that again this year too. So I've been like going Nez crazy too. So I think I've watched every YouTube interview with Nez that's on YouTube. He's such an interesting guy. And yeah, that's mine.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see it.
This was a lot of fun for me.
It was, yeah. The whole process was fun for me as well.
Yeah, this might have been the most fun one. So we're gonna just say goodbye so we can get this video over with. And thanks so much for watching. We hope you guys like this, and let us know what your favorite bands are. Right?
Definitely.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate it.